This next game was from the very next round, against a very strong Grandmaster named Giorgadze. As you can notice, in the last position, I had a very good analysis. I had prepared an opening novelty. I was very well prepared for the opening. And this game is quite similar. And there's an inherent danger in being over-prepared in the opening, which is that you can rely on the familiarity with the position, and that can lead you to a state, which is what we've been discussing, of having difficulty making the transition into thinking and not relying on your past analysis. And this is yet another reason why when I talk to my students or I focus on my own chess study, I believe very strongly in the study of the endgame and the middle game as opposed to the opening. Because a large part of studying the opening is memorization. You often will use a computer to analyze the positions. You'll do a lot of research of what people have played. You'll sometimes do very profound, deep tactical analysis, strategical analysis, but then you're studying the part of the game where you're going to be tempted to memorize things. If you study the endgame, you're really studying the heart and soul of chess. And if you do study the opening, you'll have to take this theme that we're discussing now deeply to heart. Don't believe that because you know the opening very well that you can just win the games when you end your analysis of the opening. You can't. You have to play chess. And I have seen chess players for many, many years make mistakes in the moment where their profound opening analysis runs out. Now, the first example I showed you wasn't when my profound analysis had run out. It was simply when my precise knowledge of what move order to play ran out. My own personal problem here wasn't relating so much to the opening analysis I had done, but to the fact that I was clinging to something that was known. And I think this relates largely to things in my life that were happening, living away from home, traveling through Europe, living a life on the road, which was tremendous for my growth, but which also challenged me in many ways, as I discussed in the introductory essay to this theme. This particular opening that I played against Giorgadze, the Benko Gambit, is one of the lines which I am quite a specialist in. I've done a lot of work in it. I have a lot of new ideas. And we reached a very, very good position after I reached the end of my knowledge, and all I would have had to do was find a simple move, and my position would be excellent with black. But in that moment in which I had to find my first real chess move, I didn't have the patience to do it. Now, I'm a very patient chess player usually. The problem isn't with patience. The problem is with slipping into gear when you're out of gear. This is how we reached it. d4, knight f6, c4, c5, d5, b5, Benko. He played something that's very popular now, a positional system, c takes b5, a6. Now, the Benko, for those of you who don't know it, is a pawn sacrifice where I will give away this queenside pawn. Sometimes they'll take them both, and black will end up getting a structure like this with g6, and they'll play knight c3, and then bishop takes a6, and often the type of structure that will arise will be something like this, where black gets very big queenside play, and white is over here like this. And white's game is very difficult to play, and black is building up pressure here. I'm down a pawn, but playing positionally against white's development, and also it's a very strong structure for black. Many endgame positions are good for black in the Benko, even when he's down a pawn. b6 is sort of declining the gambit. The idea of it is that if after I take here, I'm going to have the a-file closed off, and I'm not going to have as much counterplay. It's a positional system, very strong. And for the last 5 or 6 years, I've done quite a lot of analysis in the line with e6, which is what I played here. Knight c3, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, e takes d5, queen takes d5, knight c6. This was all analysis. Knight f3. Now white's next move is going to be knight e5, threatening my knight. I can't take it because my rook will hang. So I played rook b8. My idea is if he plays knight e5, I'm going to play queen f6. And after knight takes c6, d takes c6, I get very good counterplay with my pieces. He played e4, bishop e7, bishop c4, threatening mate. Again, this is all my preparation. Castles. And he plays queen h5. This is a nice idea for white. A number of strong grandmasters have tried this. The next move might be knight g5, trying to pile up on the king side. I play rook takes b6, recapturing the pawn finally, and also having an eye across the 6th rank. He castled. And now I played a move which is difficult if you don't know the position, because your rook on b6 kind of wants to cut across the whole game, but I played d6, which is very important. The point being, my next will be to play bishop e6, challenge this diagonal. If he takes it, my structure will become very good, and otherwise I'll have good central control. It's even material here. His bishop on c1 is tied down to the defense of the b-pawn. Black's game is very good here, I think. He played b3, bishop e6, and now bishop takes e6, f takes e6, queen g4, attacking my pawn. Queen c8, defending, and bishop b2. Truth be told, this was the first position that I wasn't yet familiar with. Queen g4 was his new move, but queen c8 was fairly obvious. Black to move here. What would you do? He's threatening mate. How do you defend? Now, if you were to give this position to me as a chess problem, my thought process would be as follows. Obviously, you're threatening mate. There are a number of ways to defend. I can play rook f7, but this has the downside of tying down my rook to the defensive pawn, and of pinning my weakness on e6 to my queen on c8 very powerfully because my queen is now not defended. So rook f7 doesn't feel quite right. The other possibility for me would be to play e5, blocking his bishop on b2 for my pawn on g7, and offering a queen trade. And in the long term, I'm going to have a positional weakness, which is that my bishop on e7 is hampered by my pawns. The other possibility is to play bishop f6, which blocks off his bishop, but has some tactical problems, maybe. I'd have to calculate them out to make sure that everything's okay. What are those tactical problems? One thing is that I might be a little concerned with e5, a positional pawn sacrifice quite similar to the first move that I played against Vulasevich, if you recall that game, where I played f5, doubling him up. But in this game, it would be very quick if I was trying to analyze this to see that black is fine. I can simply play d takes e5, and next I can play the move knight d4, and my central knight will be very, very strong. An excellent position for black. I would also have the option of playing the strange move bishop takes e5, and then after knight takes e5, d takes e5, rook f5 would lock down my pawns, and I can play knight d4 next. In any case, black has a good game. He could play bishop takes f6, rook takes f6, and rook d1. But then it's not too hard to see that I can simply play rook g6. If he plays queen f4, then e5 is very strong now because the bishops are gone, followed by knight d4. And after queen h3, I can play queen f8, defending my pawn. Black's game is excellent. There's nothing to worry about. It's a pretty simple discussion. I would have no problem doing this analysis. The problem is that it takes a little bit of calculation. You have to make a concrete judgment. The one thing that held me back in this position is that I wasn't yet ready to play chess, and bishop f6 required a specific judgment. I had to deal with the e5 threat. And looking at this position now, it's pretty obvious that black's game is great. I can play either knight takes e5, d takes e5, or bishop takes e5. White definitely does not have full compensation. Certainly, my position is perfectly fine. But the problem is that I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to make a judgment yet. I was reluctant to enter into the struggle. And I played the move e5, which looks fine. It looks like it's stopping white's bishop very well. The bishop on e7 is a little bit of a problem, but in these types of games, sometimes your bishop can come out to g5 to h6. But truth be told, I'm giving white an advantage. And for the rest of the game, because of this one move, when I wasn't yet ready to enter into the struggle, I had to defend for 35 moves and eventually lost. Because if you give a Grandmaster a little edge and they can use it for a long time, e5 proved to be the largest error that I made in the whole game by far. It was the only real, tangible error that I made. So I'm not going to go into a long description of why it is that e5 is bad. You can see based on general positional considerations that it would be much better for me to have these bishops off than on, because now I have a bad bishop locked in by pawns, and he has a good bishop on the same color as the squares that all my pawns are locked onto. And I had the option of playing bishop f6, and then later on trading off and playing e5, and having that same kind of position. So I clearly made the inferior decision, and the reason was because I was unwilling to evaluate a bad possibility for him playing e5, because I wasn't yet ready to enter into the struggle. And so trust me, in critical moments, take the time to enter into the position. And a lot of the time, you'll feel like you're not quite ready. Because many times in chess, the critical moment happens in a time when you're very tired, you've thought for 35 minutes, or you've been playing the opening pretty easily, and you're not quite ready to start buckling down and playing hard chess yet. But that's what we're in this for. We're in this for the struggle. So I hope these 3 games can do more than just open up your eyes to the possibility of having difficulty in transitional moments. What I hope to convey is a whole new way of studying chess. Observe yourself as a human being, and observe yourself as a chess player. Believe me, you'll notice parallel tendencies which will lead to your growth in both arenas.